Hi, welcome back to Fluency Forward ‘25, the podcast series conducted by the Advanced English Skills Improvement Unit of Royal College. Today, we delve into the fascinating world of writing, and as our special guest, we have Dr. Lawanya Wijesekara, who is a medical doctor practicing as a consultant transfusion physician attached to the National Blood Transfusion Service of the Sri Lankan Ministry of Health. She has been doing performance poetry, also known as spoken word poetry, in the United Kingdom and Sri Lanka since the year 2017. She has many publications, and apart from her publications, she maintains digital profiles of poetry known as the Isle of Poetry in multiple social media platforms since 2010.
Hello Miss. Miss, to kick things off on today's episode, would you mind sharing your journey into the world of writing, journalism and poetry with us, Miss?
So I started, writing poetry when I was 14, 15, when I was schooling. I used to write to Mirror magazine. I grew up outstation, so not in Colombo. So I grew up in Bandarwala. So I used to write to Mirror magazine. That's how I started writing. And then I did O-level English literature, but other than that, I have not had any formal English literature academic writing education. So I come from a scientific education background. So poetry has been my, I would say, I call it the heart language. So it's like something that I turn to as a mean of catharsis and to bring into paper what I feel the most, I would say. And apart from poetry, I have been writing on and off write-ups on request and like some musings. But that's how I came to write.
Well, now that we know a bit about your journey into writing and poetry, I would like to know, what is your writing process, Miss? Like, when you're writing something new, what is your writing process? How do you develop these ideas and outline the plots and bring characters to life, Miss?
So most of the things that I've written is like character building. And for me, writing is like, it just comes when it comes, and it is like when an idea hits you, I have to put it on paper. Now it's like most of the time it's the screen or the phone or the laptop or the iPad. So I type it in and then edit it on and off. I have done crafting poetry on request if someone asks me to write something. But most of the time it's like an idea kind of dawns into my head, then I jot it down.
I see.
Character building wise, I have not written any fiction stories or something like that. But I have written some not memoirs, just go on writing stuff, the musing stuff. So there's no characters there. So I do write those as well.
Oh, I see, Miss. And you mentioned that whenever an idea hits you, you put it into paper, right, Miss? I really hope that our listeners start doing that as well, because I personally believe that the most important thing to do is to get started. Like, whenever you have a good idea, get started on it. No matter what sort of challenges you will have to face, get started on it. Now, I would like to know, Miss, were there any challenges that you had to face, and also what inspired you to keep on going and achieve your milestones as an author, even with those challenges around you, Miss?
So, I wanted to publish one day, so it took me a lot of time to make it into a book, because I had a lot of poetry pieces written, but I thought there's no point in putting them into a book, because in Sri Lanka, like, hardly English poetry sells.
Yes.
So I didn't make the effort until last year, but then last year I made it into a book. Before that, I used to do performance poetry, which I enjoyed. Like, when I was a kid, I did elocution, and then I was abroad for some time. So that opened an avenue about this spoken word poetry, performance poetry. So I used to do them when I was in UK, and when I came down, I continued doing that. And then ultimately, it's made into a book.
Well, Miss, I'm glad that you put in the effort and that you turned your English poetry into a book. And you also said that English poetry hardly sells in Sri Lanka, right, Miss? So, do you have any ideas in engaging the general public into English poetry, Miss?
Yes, actually, I think when it comes to Sinhalese poetry, there's a lot of engagement in the social media, general public, in the mass media avenues. There's lots of avenues for Sinhala poetry. But English poetry, I would say there's hardly any. I mean, there are many TV programs also that kind of read out snippets of Sinhala poems and correlate them with the songs or the life incidents and go on in programs. But when it comes to English poetry, I have not come across anything of sort in Sri Lanka. I have talked to a few poets with regards to this and another publishing house as well to organize something like this, but it didn't manifest in that way. So if you see the Sinhala media, like there are several programs, I don't want to name the programs, they do a really nice job in they don't intentionally promote the poet to something like that, but they bring out the poetry in par with the day-to-day life. It brings the poetry closer to the general public. English poetry does not have that avenue in Sri Lanka. I don't know whether it has. No, I have not come across.
So, Miss, by the way, I have a quick question. Literature is changing, right, Miss? So, I want to know from your point of view, what do you think literature is going to be like in the future?
So I wouldn't call myself a person who is academically sound on the change of literature. So because I am a kind of a hobby poet, so this is not my field of study. And I think with the social media and the younger generation, people have found this poetry with lots of metaphors and things that they don't get it in the first reading. So they are kind of shedded off, I would say. And people move more towards the straightforward poetry kind of thing, because I guess the weakening attention span and everything has a role in that. But I find joy in both. Sometimes I like to hide my thoughts in words with metaphors and all that. Sometimes I like to blurt it out in the open. So it depends on the author, and it depends on the receiver as well. And when you wrap it in words and give a poem that sounds true to you, the reader might read it in another aspect. That is totally fine.
Yes, Miss. So about the younger generation having shorter attention spans, I just want to know, how do you get their attention and how do you keep their attention, Miss?
When it comes to the written media, I don't think I make an effort with that. I did publish the book, and I do post on my social media, the Insta and Facebook pages, I Love Poetry. And then I take part in House of Grace events and do performance poetry, which I'm most of the time the oldest person there. So I do have some engagement with the younger people. And I think the spoken word poetry is something that as school kids, you can venture into it. I mean, it's kind of a thing that engages the audience more, I'd say.
Okay, Miss, I will definitely keep that in mind. And moving on to our next question now, which is, do you have any advice for our aspiring authors, journalists, and poets out there, Miss?
Journalism is, I would say it's kind of a subject that I do not want to comment because it's not my thing.
Okay.
But writing per se, I would say just write what you feel. Put what you put into paper or the screens what you feel. I've read this quote, the birds don't sing for the people. They sing their heart out. They do that for themselves.
Yes.
So write what you feel and then disregard the audience. So I started posting on Facebook early as 2010, 12, 8, somewhere like that. But then there was a time that I worry about the audience, but then you put it out and it's nice. And sometimes you may have some reach, sometimes you won't, but it will serve you a purpose, the catharsis of it. And I think writing is a good coping mechanism as well when it comes to all the chaos the world throws at you. It makes you kind of reflect on yourself, either whether it is fiction or memoir or poetry or life writing as you call it these days. Whatever it is, I would encourage everyone to write what you feel, and it makes you more aware of what you're feeling as well, more mindfulness into yourself.
Yes, Miss, writing what you feel like is actually a very good thing to do. But some of us have trouble starting because of something called writer's block, miss, which most of us have gone through. And so I just want to know, have you gone through writer's block, and
Yes.
how have you overcome it? Do you have any advice for our listeners who might be experiencing writer's block right now?
Yes, I do have writer's block, and I do have like phases of writing, and like I go without writing for a long time. So that happens to me. And I think it's the fact that you are moved by something that makes you write. So if you kind of put a shield over your heart that it is like unmovable, it won't move to write something. That's what I felt about my writing. So you have to be soft in a way to feel the things, and then only like the writings will come. So if you forge yourself not to be unbothered by lots of things, sometimes the writings won't come out, because that's my personal experience. But then more looking at it in a more strategic way, you can get over like this writer's block with more reading, more exposure to films, novels, and people in general. I mean, we write mostly about people and emotions. So like being exposed to them, living itself is what makes you come out of writer's block.
Well, thank you for your advice, miss. Now, do you have any favorite authors or poets, and who might they be?
So I really like Jalaluddin Rumi's poetry and Emily Dickinson's poetry. So I like them, and I like when it comes to poetry, and Paulo Coelho. Yes.
I will definitely make sure to check them out, miss. So I'm pretty sure some of our listeners are very interested in your work now. So would you mind telling them on how they can stay up to date on your work and when you will be releasing them, miss?
Yes. So I have my Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok accounts. I love poetry. I post most of my poetry, written ones, and the performance poetry clips as well. So if one of my friends managed to record them, so I post them on all three avenues. And I have the book. It's available in Sarasavi, Jam Fruit Trees, my publisher, and in Wild and the Sage. There are several places I will send you the details. And it's an ebook in Amazon as well, if you are abroad. So that is the book. But like day to day, I write stuff on my Facebook page and Insta, and I perform with a House of Grace or spoken word.
Okay, miss. So now, to all the listeners out there, go follow those social media accounts up and show some support, right? And with that, we will be wrapping up this episode. So thank you so much for coming here today, miss, and joining us today and sharing your experiences and insights. Mm-hmm. And thank you to all of our listeners out there for tuning into Fluency Forward 24. So, as always, keep writing, keep learning, and stay inspired. Have a great day.